You sit there silently observing someone you dislike, and a strange discomfort rises in your chest. You believe you know why you hate them, perhaps their arrogance, their deception, their weakness, or their selfishness. You are convinced that your judgment is pure and justified. But I must tell you a secret that will not flatter you. What you hate in others is the mirror of what you refuse to see in yourself. It is the shadow you have chained, the part of you exiled into the darkest corners of your psyche, crying out for recognition. Hatred is not an objective truth. It is a projection of the unacknowledged self. What you cannot stand in another is often the same energy imprisoned within your own unconscious. And until you look into that mirror, you will remain a prisoner. Unknowingly dragging your own chains. There is something terrifying about realizing that the people who provoke you are not accidents, not random irritants sent by fate. They are messengers from the unconscious mirrors of the shadow that lives in silence within you. When I speak of the shadow, I do not refer only to evil, but to the wholeness of your nature, the instincts, the impulses, the truths you have repressed because they did not align with the image you wanted to show the world. The more you strive to be perfect, the more violent your rejection of these inner fragments becomes. Yet these rejected parts do not disappear. They slip into the unconscious, where they wait, gathering power, until they find a way to show themselves, often in the faces of other people. Have you ever wondered why certain individuals, without doing anything extraordinary, ignite such an intense emotional response in you? You meet them and something inside you revolts. You feel an irrational contempt or anger, as though they threaten something sacred within you. This is not about them. It is about you. It is about the part of yourself you have chained and buried. They are the key. And your reaction is a sign of the prison where you have locked pieces of your own soul. The soul has no patience for our lies. It keeps calling to us, often through the people we cannot bear to love or even tolerate. I have spent years listening to the dreams of men and women, to their confessions, to the masks they wear and the masks they despise. Every time I see the same pattern emerge. What is denied in the self will inevitably be encountered in the other. We hate the liar because we lie to ourselves. We despise the coward because we have buried our own fear so deep that we can no longer feel it directly. We detest the selfish because we were taught that our own desires are shameful, and so we chained them, pretending to be endlessly selfless. But no one is endlessly selfless. And when we see someone living out the very traits we refuse to acknowledge, we call them evil. We call them wrong, because we are terrified to see that reflection. Let me tell you a story. A woman once came to me with a fury that burned like acid. She could not bear her colleague. A woman who was loud, opinionated, and unashamed of her success. She is arrogant. My patient told me, she is everything I hate. She makes me sick. But as we peeled back the layers, it became clear that what she truly hated was not arrogance. It was the freedom to be unapologetically herself. My patient had lived a life of suppression, taught from childhood to be humble, cared, and self-sacrificing. She had caged her own ambition so tightly that she no longer recognized it as hers. And so when she saw someone else expressing this vitality, she was not only envious, she was enraged, for it reminded her of what she had lost. Her hatred was the shadow crying for release. We are taught that the shadow is evil, but it is not. It is simply the truth of what we are, stripped of the masks we wear. In that shadow lives not only our anger and fear, but also our power, our courage, our unapologetic desires. To hate another is to hate your own reflection in the dark water of the soul. The chains you feel are not forged by others. They are the result of your refusal to look into that water, to see yourself as you truly are, with all your light and all your darkness intertwined. Dreams often reveal this truth long before we dare face it in the waking world. In dreams, we meet figures we despise or fear, and these figures often represent aspects of ourselves that we have rejected. A man dreams of a thief, and he feels terror and rage. Yet when we interpret the dream, we find that the thief is not an external enemy, it is his own hunger for life, his longing to steal back the time and energy he has given away to meaningless obligations. A woman dreams of a cruel queen who mocks her, but the queen is her own buried willpower, her own capacity to rule her life with authority. The unconscious speaks in symbols, and often the most hated symbols are the ones closest to our own heart. What we hate in others reveals the unfinished work of the soul. We are not meant to destroy these reflections, but to integrate them. To integrate the shadow is not to become evil. As some fear, it is to become whole. You cannot know your strength if you deny your rage. You cannot know your freedom if you bury your desires, and you cannot know true love if you despise the parts of yourself that long to be seen. Integration is the key that breaks the chains. But let me warn you, this path is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. To face your shadow is to stand before a mirror that does not flatter you. You will see your pettiness, your jealousy, your cruelty, your fears. You will see the faces of all the people you have hated, only to realize that they were carrying pieces of you. And yet, if you have the courage to stand in that mirror and not turn away, something extraordinary happens. You begin to reclaim your soul. Piece by piece, you begin to feel a strange compassion for those you once despised. For you see that they were never your enemies, they were your teachers, pointing to the chains you did not know you wore. The archetypes within you are not silent when you deny them. They will speak through others. The warrior archetype, when suppressed, will appear as the bully or the aggressor in your life. The lover archetype, when buried, will manifest as the seductive or promiscuous figure who stirs your disgust or longing. The sage archetype, when ignored, will show up as the arrogant intellectual who provokes your judgment. These are not coincidences. The unconscious will not rest until you integrate the archetypes that live within you. What you hate most is often what you most need to understand, embrace it, or at least reconcile with. Think of a time when you felt irrationally offended by someone. Perhaps it was a colleague who spoke with confidence, a friend who set boundaries, or a stranger who lived freely without apology. Did you not feel a sting of discomfort, as though they were breaking some unspoken rule you had been forced to obey? That discomfort is the voice of your chained self. It is saying, look, that is me, that is the part of you that you have forgotten, the part that still longs to breathe. And so, my friend, hatred is never the end of the story. It is the beginning of an invitation. The question is not, why do I hate them, but rather, what is this hatred trying to show me about myself? This is the path of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about embracing the totality of your being, the light and the shadow alike. You cannot reach the summit of your soul while disowning half of it. I tell you this, not to shame you, but to awaken you. The world is filled with mirrors, and every face you see is a reflection of something within you. When you love someone, you see a reflection of your own beauty. When you hate someone, you see a reflection of your own chains. The wise do not fear these mirrors. They look into them until the image becomes clear. The chains fall, not by condemning the other, but by freeing the self. You see, the unconscious is not a place of silence, but a vast ocean that speaks through waves of emotion, instinct, and projection. When we encounter someone who disturbs us, it is as if a stone has been thrown into this ocean, stirring the waters and bringing forgotten images to the surface. Most people do not dive into these waters. They remain at the shore, convinced that the disturbance is caused by the other person. They say, that person is toxic, arrogant, lazy, cruel. But if they dared to dive deeper, they would find that the disturbance began within themselves. The outer world is only a stage upon which the inner drama plays itself out. To truly understand the shadow, you must abandon the illusion that you are only what you appear to be on the surface. You are not just the kind, moral, intelligent mask you show to society. You are also the primal instincts, the unrefined desires, the fears, and the forgotten powers that you have suppressed. In every human being, there is both saint and beast, both creator and destroyer. When you deny this duality, you fall into the trap of believing that all evil lies outside of you, while all good belongs to you. This is the most dangerous illusion, for it blinds you to your own depths and leaves you vulnerable to the projections of your unconscious pisces. Consider this. The traits you hate most passionately in others are often the traits you secretly fear in yourself. The man who despises weakness is often terrified of facing his own vulnerability. The woman who mocks vanity may be repressing her own longing to be seen and adored. The person who condemns greed may be suppressing their own hunger for abundance. The shadow does not vanish simply because you reject it. It becomes stronger in the dark. It waits for moments to show itself, often through intense emotional reactions toward others. This is why I say that hatred is a teacher. It points to the chains you have placed around your own being. Do you not see? Every time you say, I could never be like them, you are denying a part of your humanity. This denial does not make you pure. It makes you divided, and a divided soul suffers endlessly. You become reactive, fragile, easily provoked, because every face you see carries a hidden message from your shadow, and you have not yet learned to read it. When you begin the work of individuation, when you truly set out to know yourself, you will notice how many of your judgments were never about the world but about the self you could not accept. You will see that the people you hated were your mirrors, reflecting what you refused to integrate, and you will see that those very qualities, once accepted and transformed, were not monsters, but guardians of hidden treasures. Beneath the arrogance you hate lies the confidence you need. Beneath the selfishness you condemn lies the self-respect you crave. Beneath the anger you fear lies the power to protect and assert yourself. I have often said that the shadow is 90% pure gold. Why gold? Because within those dark, rejected parts of you lie the strengths, the instincts, and the creative forces that you need to live fully. The chains you feel around your soul are not forged by the world, but by your refusal to claim your own gold. You bury it because you were taught that it is ugly or wrong. And then you project it onto others, hating them for holding what you secretly desire. Let us explore this with an example from the collective unconscious, from the myths that have shaped humanity's understanding of itself. In many ancient stories, the hero must descend into the underworld, face terrifying monsters, and retrieve a treasure or a piece of lost knowledge. This is not just a story of adventure. It is the story of every soul. The underworld is your unconscious. The monsters are your shadow aspects, your rage, your jealousy, your fear. And the treasure is a power that lies beyond your fear, waiting to be reclaimed. The hatred you feel toward others is the roar of the monster, warning you that something valuable is hidden there. But most people never descend. They remain on the surface, blaming others for the monsters they have not yet faced. There was once a man who could not bear the sight of greed in others. He called greedy people evil, corrupt, and soulless. Yet he lived in poverty, unable to ask for what he needed, afraid to claim his own worth. When we explored his dreams, they were filled with images of locked vaults, golden coins, and shadowy figures hoarding wealth. These were not symbols of external people, they were symbols of his own relationship with value and abundance. His hatred of greed was the mask of his fear of claiming his own right to live with fullness. When he learned to see this, to integrate this hidden part of himself, his hatred dissolved. He no longer saw others as enemies. He saw them as reminders of what he had once rejected in himself. Do you understand what this means? The people you hate are not chains placed upon you by the world. They are mirrors of your own chains. When you begin to see them as mirrors, something shifts. You realize that no one can truly provoke you unless they touch a wound that already exists inside you. This is not to say that others are blameless or perfect, of course not. But your emotional reaction belongs to you. It is the voice of your unconscious calling you to look within. The process of integrating the shadow is not an intellectual exercise. It is a transformation of the soul. It requires you to feel the emotions you have buried, to face the memories you have denied, to embrace the parts of yourself that you thought were unworthy of love. It is like walking into a dark forest with only a small flame. The trees whisper your fears. The shadows stretch like claws. And yet, if you keep walking, you will find that the darkness holds not only fear but also healing. The shadow, once embraced, becomes your ally. The parts of you that once sabotaged you begin to serve you. The anger that once consumed you becomes a source of courage. The fear that once paralyzed you becomes a guide, warning you when you are betraying yourself. I urge you to look at your own life and ask, who are the people I cannot forgive, cannot tolerate, cannot stand to be around? What is it in them that I hate so much? And then ask yourself, with brutal honesty, where does that same energy live within me? When did I chain that part of myself? What would happen if I dared to unchain it? To see it, to own it. This is not a comfortable question, but it is the beginning of freedom. You will find that the chains around your soul are made of your own judgments, your own refusal to see yourself fully. I must emphasize that integrating the shadow does not mean condoning harmful behavior in others. It does not mean excusing cruelty or injustice, but it does mean recognizing that your emotional reactions are messengers pointing you to the places where you are still unfree. Once you understand this, you gain a strange kind of power. You are no longer controlled by your hatred. You can see clearly, act wisely, and respond from a place of wholeness rather than reactivity. This is why I say that what you hate in others reveals a part of you still in chains. The chains are not external. They are forged by fear, by shame, by the stories you were told about who you are allowed to be. Society teaches you to wear a mask, to show only your most acceptable face, while hiding everything that does not fit. But your soul is not interested in masks. Your soul longs to be whole. And the first step toward wholeness is to recognize the parts of yourself that you have exiled. The journey into the shadow is often described as a descent because it feels like going down into something heavy, dark and untamed. It is the path of those who dare to know themselves beyond illusions, beyond the fragile mask of being good or acceptable. When you begin to explore this hidden dimension, you might first feel resistance. Your mind will say, no, this cannot be me. I am not like that. I am not jealous. I am not selfish. I am not cruel. And yet, these qualities live within every soul in some form, just as beauty, generosity, and love do. To be whole is to hold the paradox of both light and dark within yourself, without collapsing into either. Think of a mirror that reflects not only your face, but also every expression you have ever hidden from the world. That is what the shadow offers you, a reflection of the parts you have deemed unworthy. But here lies the paradox. The very parts you repress are often the source of your greatest vitality. When you hate someone for being bold, it might be because you have silenced your own courage. When you resent someone's freedom, it might be because you have locked yourself in the cage of expectations. The shadow reveals the life energy you have buried, and this energy, if reclaimed, becomes the fire that transforms you. Let me share with you an image that often comes to me when I speak of the shadow. Imagine a great forest at night. The trees are tall and silent, and the path ahead is barely visible. Most people are afraid to enter this forest. They stay at the edges, where the light is safe, where everything is familiar. But within the depths of this forest lies a treasure, a fire that can warm you, a power that can awaken you The figures you hate, the traits you despise, are like whispers coming from the forest, calling you inward. They are saying, come and see. What you fear is not what it seems. Beyond this darkness lies your freedom. In the collective psyche, the shadow is often represented by figures of the other, those who live beyond the boundaries of what society deems acceptable. These figures carry the qualities that the collective consciousness has repressed. This is why entire groups of people can become scapegoats for the hatred of others. They represent the unacknowledged parts of a culture's soul. The same dynamic occurs within you as an individual. The parts of yourself that you reject become scapegoats, cast out, and then seen in the faces of others. If you do not heal this, you will spend your life in a constant battle with reflections, never realizing that the battlefield is within. The integration of the shadow is an act of radical courage. It requires you to stop blaming others for the emotions they awaken in you, and instead turn inward, asking, what part of me is calling for attention through this hatred? This is not an easy task. Your ego will fight it, because the ego thrives on the illusion of separation, on the idea that you are entirely different from the ones you despise. But the deeper truth is that we all carry the same archetypal energies, the same collective patterns, though we express them in different ways. To integrate the shadow is to recognize this shared humanity, to see that the darkness you judge in others is not foreign to you. Dreams often provide a safe space to encounter the shadow. In dreams, the figures you hate or fear are not bound by the masks of waking life. They appear in raw form monsters, tricksters, thieves, tyranns. These dream figures are messages from your unconscious, urging you to meet what you have rejected. If you can face them in the dream, if you can engage with them rather than run from them, you will often find that they transform before your eyes. The monster becomes a guide. The tyrant becomes a teacher. The thief reveals the treasure he was guarding all along. This is the mystery of the shadow. It is both the demon and the key. I remember a man who dreamt of a dark, hooded figure chasing him through a labyrinth. He woke up terrified, drenched in sweat, convinced that some evil force was after him. But as we explored the dream together, he realized that the hooded figure was his own ambition, which he had been running from for years. He had convinced himself that ambition was selfish, that it was better to stay small, invisible, and safe. But this buried drive did not vanish. It turned into a shadow that haunted him when he faced it, when he admitted that he longed to create, to succeed, to express his true power. The shadow figure transformed. It no longer chased him. It stood beside him, offering its strength. This is what happens. When you confront the qualities you hate in others, they no longer haunt you. You no longer feel that consuming, irrational rage, because you have owned your reflection. You see others not as threats but as messengers. Even those who truly do wrong in the world lose their power to control your inner state, because you have reclaimed your projections. You no longer need to throw your shadow onto them. You have taken it back where it belongs and transformed it into wisdom. But you may ask, how do I begin? How do I face something so uncomfortable, so painful? The first step is awareness. Begin to notice the moments when you feel hatred, judgment, or deep irritation toward others. Instead of simply believing that they are the problem, pause and ask, what in me is being triggered? What part of me does this remind me of? This simple question can open a doorway to profound insight. You may find memories surfacing, moments when you were shamed for expressing a similar trait, moments when you felt powerless or unseen. The shadow often holds the wounds of the child you once were. And it is through compassion that these wounds begin to heal. Do not expect this work to be instant. The unconscious is vast and layered, like an ancient city with hidden rooms and forgotten temples. You may encounter resistance, fear, even anger at yourself for what you find. But remember this, the shadow is not here to destroy you. It is here to make you whole. It is the missing half of your soul, waiting for your embrace. When you hate someone, you are really hating a part of yourself that is crying for recognition. Can you listen to that cry without judgment? It is often helpful to engage with the shadow creatively. Write down your judgments about others, and then imagine speaking to those qualities within yourself. If you hate someone's arrogance, speak to your own hidden pride. If you despise someone's laziness, speak to your own need for rest, your own fear of failure. This is not about blaming yourself for the actions of others. It is about understanding that your emotional response is a mirror. The more you explore this mirror, the freer you become. The chains you feel around your heart and mind are not as solid as they seem. They are made of old stories, old wounds, and old beliefs about who you are supposed to be. The shadow is the key that unlocks these chains, because it shows you the truth of what lies beneath. It is not enough to be only good, for goodness that denies its opposite becomes brittle and false. True wholeness comes from embracing both the light and the darkness, both the saint and the shadow within you. Only then can you stand in the world without fear, without hatred, without the endless projections that blind you to reality. The work of individuation is the work of becoming real. It is not about perfection or purity. It is about seeing yourself as you truly are, with all your flaws, all your brilliance, and all your contradictions. When you accept yourself fully, you no longer need to hate others for showing you what you have repressed. You can see them clearly, respond wisely, and even love them, not because they are perfect, but because you understand that they too are mirrors carrying their own shadows, their own chains. The path of integration is not linear. You will find yourself returning again and again to the same mirrors, the same people or situations that provoke you, each time uncovering a deeper layer of truth. It is as if life itself conspires to place these mirrors before you, refusing to let you escape your own reflection. Every relationship becomes a stage where your unconscious plays its drama, inviting you to step behind the curtain and see who is really pulling the strings. This is why relationships are often the most powerful teachers. They bring out the parts of us that we would rather keep hidden. The ones we love and the ones we hate are both mirrors of our deepest unspoken truths. When you hate someone, what you truly hate is the way they awaken a part of you that you have not yet learned to accept. It is as if they are speaking in a language that your soul remembers, but that you have spent your life trying to forget. They might embody traits that you were punished for as a child: anger, boldness, sensuality, ambition. Or they might reveal a side of life that you were told was forbidden or wrong, and so you reject them, not because they are inherently evil, but because they remind you of your own exiled self. I once spoke with a man who despised arrogance above all else. Whenever he encountered someone confident and unapologetic, he would feel a burning hatred rise within him. He believed that his anger was righteous, that arrogance was a moral failing. But as we explored his inner world, we discovered that he had spent his entire life hiding his own voice. He had grown up in a household where speaking his truth was punished, where humility was enforced to the point of self-erasure. His hatred of arrogance was, in truth, a hatred of his own silenced power. When he finally began to express himself, when he allowed his voice to be heard, that hatred dissolved. He saw that the arrogance he had despised in others was simply the reflection of the confidence he was afraid to claim. The unconscious has a way of bringing these lessons to us over and over until we are ready to listen. It is relentless in its pursuit of wholeness. You may run from your shadow, but you cannot escape it. It will appear in your dreams, in your relationships, in the patterns of your life, whispering, "Look at me, see me, I am you." And if you continue to deny it, the shadow will find more dramatic ways to get your attention. It might appear as self-sabotage, as unexplained anger, as depression or anxiety. These are not punishments, they are signals. They are the voice of the soul calling you back to the parts of yourself that you have abandoned. When you look at someone you hate, you are looking at an invitation. This person, whether they know it or not, is offering you the chance to see what still binds you. They are showing you the chains you have placed on your own heart. It is not about excusing their behavior or pretending that harmful actions are acceptable. It is about using the mirror they provide to see what you have hidden. Hatred is like a spotlight, illuminating the parts of you that are still in the dark. But here lies the danger if you do not recognize this dynamic. You will remain trapped in the cycle of projection. You will keep seeing the world as a battlefield, where others are enemies to be defeated or avoided. This mindset will consume you, because the more you try to fight your shadow in others, the more powerful it becomes within you. What you resist does not simply vanish, it grows stronger in the dark. Only when you turn toward it, when you face it with honesty and compassion, does it begin to lose its grip on you. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to be free of hatred, not because the world has become perfect, but because you no longer give your power away to your projections. Imagine seeing someone who once triggered your rage, and instead of reacting, you feel a strange, calm curiosity. You ask yourself, what part of me does this person reflect? And in that moment, you grow, you take back the energy you once spent in anger and turn it inward, using it to understand and transform yourself. This is true freedom, not the absence of darkness, but the ability to hold it, to see it, and to integrate it in the great myths of transformation, the Hero always faces a shadow figure, a dragon, a demon, a dark twin. These figures are not merely enemies. They are tests or guardians of the treasure. To defeat them, the hero must recognize that they are not separate, that the shadow holds the key to their power. So it is with you. The people you hate are not obstacles, they are guardians, holding the keys to the parts of you that are still chained. When you recognize this, you no longer need to fight them. You can learn from them, take back your projections, and grow stronger. The shadow is not only personal but collective. Entire cultures project their unacknowledged aspects onto others, creating enemies and outsiders to carry what they do not want to see in themselves. Wars, prejudice, and hatred often arise from this collective shadow. To do your shadow work is not only to heal yourself, but to contribute to the healing of humanity. Every time you take back a projection, every time you face your own darkness, rather than blaming it on others, you help dissolve the illusions that divide us. This is not just personal psychology, it is spiritual work of the highest order. You may ask, but what if I'm right? What if the person I hate truly is cruel or corrupt? And I say, perhaps they are, but your emotional reaction still belongs to you. Their actions may call for boundaries, justice, or resistance, but your hatred is your own mirror. You can confront injustice without being consumed by hate. In fact, you will be more effective in doing so when you act from clarity rather than projection. To see clearly, you must first clear the lens of your own unconscious judgments. The process of shadow integration is like peeling layers of an onion. At first, you may uncover only surface-level reactions: irritation, annoyance, dislike. But as you go deeper, you begin to find the wounds that gave birth to these reactions. You remember the moments when you were told, you must not be like this. You must hide this part of you. These are the moments when the chains were forged. As you face them, as you bring them into the light of consciousness, the chains begin to dissolve. What was once a source of shame or hatred becomes a source of strength. I have seen people transform completely through this work. A woman who hated selfish people realized that her hatred was born from a childhood where her own needs were never met. She had learned to see self-care as selfishness, and so she resented anyone who dared to claim their space. When she began to honor her own needs, when she allowed herself to rest and receive, her hatred vanished. She saw that what she had despised in others was simply the reflection of her own longing to be cared for. There's a strange and profound beauty in this realization. The world does not change, but your perception of it does. The faces that once triggered you become teachers. You see that each encounter, even the most difficult, is a chance to know yourself more deeply. This is the gift of the shadow. It forces you to look inward, to confront the parts of yourself that you have neglected. And in doing so, it gives you back your wholeness. So I ask you now, who is your mirror? Who awakens the fire of judgment or hatred in you? Can you see beyond their surface, beyond your reaction, to the part of yourself that they reflect? This is not easy work. It will challenge your ego, your self-image, your need to feel good and right, But it is the only work that leads to true freedom. As long as you hate what you see in others, you remain chained to the illusion of separation. The moment you claim your shadow, you step into your full power. To free yourself from the chains of projection is to awaken a new kind of vision, a vision that sees beyond the surface of things. When you begin to integrate your shadow, the faces of those you once despised take on a new meaning. You no longer look at them with blind anger, but with curiosity, as if they hold a secret map to a place within you that has long been hidden. It is not that their behavior becomes admirable, but it no longer has the power to enslave your emotions. You stand taller, stronger, because you have reclaimed the energy that was once scattered across your judgments. I often tell those who seek inner healing that the shadow is like a long-forgotten sibling. It has been locked in the basement of your psyche, unwanted and unloved, but it never stops knocking. Every time you feel a surge of hatred, that knock grows louder. You can ignore it for years, even decades. But one day you will find that the basement door can no longer hold. The shadow demands recognition because your soul cannot be whole without it. Wholeness does not come from cutting away parts of yourself, but from gathering them, embracing them, and understanding their rightful place in the story of who you are. The hatred you feel toward others is a sign that you are still at war with yourself. It is the voice of a fragmented soul, a soul that has been taught to fear its own depths. To heal this, you must descend into those depths willingly. It is a descent that feels like death, for the ego does not easily allow the light of truth to enter. But what dies is not your essence, it is a mask, the false self that you thought was all you were. What emerges is not a new self, but the whole self, the self that was always there, waiting beneath the layers of fear and denial. I recall a dream told to me by a young man who was tormented by anger toward his father. In his dream, he saw himself chained in a dark room, with his father standing outside, mocking him. But as we explored the dream, he realized something extraordinary. The key to his chains was in his own hand. His hatred of his father had blinded him to the truth that he was capable of freeing himself. The chains were forged not only by what his father had done, but by his own refusal to face the anger and hurt he carried inside. When he learned to confront these feelings, to acknowledge the shadow of his pain, he found that the chains fell away. He no longer hated his father. He saw him as a flawed human being, but no longer a jailer. This is the secret of shadow work. The freedom you seek is not in changing the people you hate, but in understanding what they awaken in you. They show you the unhealed wounds, the buried emotions, the forgotten parts of your being. And when you face these, when you take responsibility for your own inner landscape, no one can chain you again. Hatred loses its grip. You see the world with clearer eyes. But integration does not mean indulgence. To acknowledge your shadow is not to act out every dark impulse or to justify harmful behavior. It is to see these impulses for what they are, messages from the unconscious, and to channel their energy in constructive ways. Anger, for example, is not evil. It is the voice of your boundaries, the fire that protects what is sacred. When suppressed, it becomes destructive, emerging as hatred or passive aggression. But when acknowledged, it becomes a force of courage and clarity. The same is true of desire, fear, and even jealousy. Each of these, when integrated, becomes a source of insight and growth. I invite you to see your hatred as a compass. Each time you feel it, ask yourself, what is this pointing to in me? What chain is this showing me? You will find again and again that the people who trigger you are not here to torment you, but to teach you. They are mirrors of your own evolution, reflecting the places where you are still divided. When you take this perspective, every difficult encounter becomes an opportunity. Life stops being a battlefield and becomes a classroom for the soul. Consider how your life would change if you no longer feared these reflections. Imagine walking into a room filled with people who once provoked you, and instead of tightening with anger, you feel an openness, a curiosity. You think, what can I learn about myself from this moment? This does not mean that you allow abuse or injustice. On the contrary, it makes you stronger, more capable of setting boundaries, because you are not reacting blindly. You act with wisdom, with a clear understanding of your own inner world. There is a profound liberation in realizing that no one can truly harm you emotionally unless they awaken something unresolved within you. This does not make you weak, it makes you sovereign. It gives you the power to choose your response. Rather than being pulled into unconscious patterns of hatred and blame, you begin to see that the real enemy is never out there. It is the unclaimed parts of yourself that create conflict. I want to leave you with a vision. Imagine standing before a great mirror, one that does not only show your face, but the entirety of your soul. In this mirror, you see not only your virtues, but also your shadows, the fears, the resentments, the longings you have denied. At first, you may recoil, but then you look closer, you see that each shadow holds a fragment of your light, waiting to be reclaimed. You reach out, and one by one, you take these fragments into your heart. With each one, you feel the chains falling away. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are whole, and when you are whole, something extraordinary happens. You no longer project your inner conflict onto others. You can see them as they truly are, complex, flawed, beautiful in their own way. You may still set boundaries, still say no when necessary. But you do so without hatred. You do so with the clarity of someone who has walked into the depths of their own soul and returned with the treasure of self-awareness. This is a chilling truth I offer you. What you hate in others is not their burden to carry, but yours to understand. It is the reflection of the part of you that is still in chains, waiting for your courage to set it free. Do not run from these reflections. Look into them with the eyes of a seeker, a warrior, a healer, for only by facing what you fear can you find the gold that lies beneath. When you leave this place, remember that every face you meet is a mirror. Some will reflect your light and you will feel love. Others will reflect your shadow and you will feel hate. But both are parts of you, calling you to the same truth. You are larger than, deeper than you imagine, and capable of embracing all that you are Do this. And no chain can hold you